Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Roads? Well, we're going, we don't need roads.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
No, I am your father.
You're listening to After the Ending, the only film podcast where we tell you what happens after the ending of your favorite films. And now, here are your hosts, Mike Spring and Phil Edwards. Hello and welcome to After the Ending. I'm Mike Spring.
And I'm Phil Edwards.
How are we doing today, Phil?
I'm a bit warm. It's nice and humid here in the UK for this evening, which is a bit of a change. What's it like over there?
Well, I'm doing my first podcast in shorts, actually, so pretty similar to you.
Saucy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're just starting things off tonight a little on the saucy side, I guess.
Yeah, let's relax. Put on some slow beats, slow tunes.
So, Phil, what films are we talking about today?
Yes, today we are talking about Demolition Man, starring Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. Well, first of all, we'll be doing Guys and Dolls, which stars Frank Sinatra and Marlon Brando. And is our first musical, I think.
It is our first musical, and very likely could be our last also.
Yes, yeah.
As I'm not generally a huge fan of musicals, but I do make exceptions once in a while.
Yeah, I think I'm much the same. As long as the music, if it's a good musical, it does transcend things. But
yeah, there are definitely some that I like, and actually, Moulin Rouge is one of my favorite films, and that's a musical. I think there are good musicals, but I do tend to find that the good ones are outweighed by I don't want to say the bad ones, but they're outweighed by ones that I don't care for.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it.
Also, tonight we're going to be revisiting 1997, and we may even have a special surprise guest or two at the end of the episode, so stick around for that.
Ooh, exciting times.
So why don't we start with, let's start with Guys and Dolls tonight, Phil. How's that sound?
Works for me. Why don't you take us through it, Mike?
All right, sounds good. So, Guys and Dolls, a 1955 movie musical starring Marlon Brando, Frank Sinatra, Gene Simmons, and Vivian Blaine. It was directed by the great Joseph Mankiewicz, and it was based on the stage play of the same name. Now, bear with me, this is a little longer of a synopsis than I thought it would take to explain the movie, but I think I've got it pretty succinct. Nathan Detroit is a gambler, played by Frank Sinatra, who sets up illegal craps games, and he's being hounded by Lieutenant Brannigan, who is coming down hard on illegal gambling, and Nathan Detroit can't use any of the places he normally does to set up his illegal gambling. Complicating things in his life currently are his girlfriend, or fiancée more appropriately, Adelaide, who wants to end their 14-year engagement by getting married, which Nathan is a little reluctant to do. She also wants him to go straight, but Nathan doesn't really feel very comfortable with that either. He runs into an old friend of his, Sky Masterson, played by Marlon Brando.
I will say the character names. I do love the character names of Sky Masterson and Nathan Detroit.
It's funny you mentioned that, actually. I have a character in one of my books that I've written whose nickname is Detroit, and it's a character name I've had in my head for probably 30 years or so, no, 20 years or so, and it's because of Nathan Detroit, because I always loved that name so much that, long time when I was a teenager and I was creating stories, I always had a character nicknamed Detroit, and so I've kind of worked that into one of my current stories as well. So I agree, great names.
Awesome, look forward to reading that story.
Thank you. Meanwhile, back in New York, where Guys and Dolls takes place, Nathan Detroit runs into Sky Masterson, who is a high roller gambler. He'll bet a huge amount of money on just about anything. So Nathan bets Masterson that he can't take a girl of Nathan's choosing to Havana, Cuba, on a, romantic getaway. Nathan picks Sergeant Sarah Brown, a woman who works at the Save a Soul mission, which is a staunchly anti-gambling religious revival type of place. Sky, of course, accepts the bet, and he tells her that he's a gambler who wants to reform, and he promises that he'll get a dozen gamblers into the mission for a meeting if she'll go to Havana with him. Since the mission is in danger of being closed, she agrees to go with him. Sky and Sarah go to Havana. They begin to fall in love, but when they get back to the States and they go to the mission, they find that Nathan has been running an illegal craps game in the empty mission. Sarah's furious, and she leaves Sky. Sky feels like he still has to make good on his bet to deliver a dozen sinners to her, and so he finds one of Nathan's games. He saves Nathan just in time from being wiped out by a crooked, big-time Chicago gangster named Big Julie, and he rolls the dice on a bet where he'll pay every gambler there $1,000 if he loses, but if he wins, they all have to go to the mission to be saved. The mission is just about to be shut down when it suddenly fills with gamblers who start to confess their sins. Sarah forgives Sky, and the film ends with a double wedding in the middle of Times Square. Sky marries Sarah, and Nathan finally marries long-suffering Adelaide.
Hurrah!
Fade to black. So as I mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of musicals, but I have to say that I absolutely love Guys and Dolls. It is a film I've loved since I saw it as a kid, and the music is great, the story is great, the cast is great, and even though it's not a genre I care for, typically speaking, this to me is probably the best musical of all time. How about you, Phil? How do you feel about it?
Well, I saw the film a long time ago, probably when I was a kid as well, and I hadn't seen it since until doing this episode. It's got great actors in it. I enjoyed it, to be honest. I didn't think it was going to, but because I think it's always the thought Marlon Brando in a musical.
Right.
It always throws me that, even though I know he's been in it, I'd seen the film before. It's always, whenever it's cropped up, Guys and Dolls, I go, oh yeah, it's the one with Marlon Brando in the musical, and it just always they never seem to go together.
Sure.
Those things, but no, I really enjoyed it. Probably not my favourite musical, but then at the minute I can't think what my favourite musical would be.
Right. Well, that's fair.
No, it's had some great tunes, a nice story, and it was an enjoyable film.
Absolutely. All right, so why don't you take us through your day after?
Okay, well, it's not that eventful. The two couples, they head on out for their honeymoon with no gambling involved. They have a lovely time, everything's going smoothly. Big Julie and the other gamblers haven't quite changed their ways, despite them all turning up at the mission. But nicely, and a couple of others are determined to give it a go because they realise their life's going nowhere and they want to change things around a bit. So that's not the most exciting of things, but that's how the story continues. What about you, Mike? What have you got?
All right, well, mine also starts off with the two married couples going on their honeymoons, but they split up in my version. Nathan and Adelaide actually go to Havana on Sky and Sarah's recommendation, and Sky and Sarah go to Niagara Falls. Now, Nathan and Adelaide have a good long talk about the future. Adelaide still wants Nathan to go legit, and he's willing to try after what happened with him almost getting cleaned out by Big Julie. But he doesn't know what else he can do for a living. So Adelaide tells him he doesn't have to change overnight, but they're going to work together to come up with a solution that will work for him. Meanwhile, Sky and Sarah discover that honeymooning in Niagara Falls, where there are any number of casinos, was not the best idea. She still wants Sky to give up gambling, but he has a hard time not giving in to his temptations. So one night, he sends her back to their hotel room and gets sucked into a casino where he spends the entire night gambling. And when he gets back, he finds her furious. He tries to sing her a song to calm her down, but she interrupts him with a song of her own, in which she says he has to pick her or gambling. And because this is a musical, her song completely changes his mind, and he picks her and gives up gambling forever. Because that's how things work in musicals.
Musical magic.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Brilliant, I like that.
Thanks. All right, how about your immediate aftermath?
My immediate aftermath, Sky and Nathan, they're determined to change their ways. They've promised to do this to the women they love. But they realise that this gambling is their passion. It's been their life for so long, and their wives do understand this. So they come to a compromise that Sky and Nathan will buy a racehorse. Therefore, they're not going to be gambling on it, but they'll be putting their racehorse into races and going on like that. It means they're not gambling. They'll still be involved in the life that they've had such a passion for, and they'll still be around these things. And also, Sister Sarah, she realised it will give them a chance to bring in more people to the mission. Because they'll be making contacts, things like this, and they can say, well, if it's getting too much for you, head on to the mission. She'll put you on the right track. Meanwhile, nicely, he's helping out on the mission, along with a few of the other people who wanted to change their ways. And Big Julie approaches Nathan and tries to blackmail him to fix the race with the racehorse. Nathan thinks it over and talks to Sky about it. That's what I've got for the immediate aftermath.
Gonna leave us hanging as to whether to take it or not. All right.
Yes, yeah.
All right.
So what about you? What's your immediate aftermath?
All right, well, Nathan and Sky both have to find a new line of work, so they decide to partner up. Nathan tries to goad Sky into bets once in a while when Sky gets under his skin, but since Sarah sang to him, he's completely cured of his gambler ways. They knock around a lot of ideas, but they keep coming up empty for a business that would work well for two reformed gamblers. Eventually, they break out into a song where they toss around ideas. Fedora hat makers, suit salesmen, dice manufacturers, bookies, racehorse owners. I came up with that one. But nothing rhymes, and so it doesn't get them excited. So finally, they decide that since they're both so good at coming up with lyrics on the fly, they should start writing songs together. So they go on to write a number of hits for popular 50s and 60s acts such as the Beatles, the Monkees, Neil Diamond, Buddy Holly, the Supremes, and the Wonders, sometimes called the Oneaters. They become one of the most prolific songwriting duos of the 60s. And that's where we'll leave it for now.
Wow. God, I like that.
Thank you.
Okay, so long term for me.
Yep.
I've got Sky and Nathan working in conjunction with the police, set up a sting and get Big Julie arrested for this blackmail attempt. He's now out of their life. He goes down for a long, long time.
Good choice.
The years go by. Nathan and Miss Adelaide, they have a couple of kids. Life's really good for all of them because it's a musical. These things always end up being really nice. There's some hardship, the usual stuff, but for Nathan and Miss Adelaide, it's great. They've got a nice little family. Sky and Sarah, they try to have kids but find out they're unable, but they push through the upsets. They have a rough patch and almost split up, but they keep it together and they end up adopting a couple of kids. But Sky and Nathan are determined to keep things honest in their life, and they have great success with their horse, and they buy more and more horses, have more and more success until they have one of the most respected stables in the US. And that's just what I brought it down to. It's
very nice.
There's nothing meta, not bringing it around to another film. I just thought that's the way it would go.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I like it, actually.
Thank you.
That's one of the things. I know I tend to do that a lot, but,
Well, I do as well.
Right,
yeah,
but we can have endings where we don't go meta, or turn them into somebody from another movie. I mean, I think that's okay.
I was like that when I was thinking of it and writing it down. I suddenly went, but it doesn't tie into anything. But then I thought, it doesn't have to.
Right, it's almost like a twist because people are starting to expect it. So when you don't tie into something else, it's like, ooh, I didn't see that coming.
But it threw me for a minute.
I'm sure.
I almost tried to shoehorn Seabiscuit into it. But,
I was wondering if you were going there, actually. So
yeah, I thought best not.
There you go.
So what about your long term? Come on, I want to know what happens.
All right, well, as the 70s dawn and disco begins to become a thing, Nathan and Sky become disenfranchised with the pop music scene. They want to move their talents to something else, something bigger. So they decide to write a musical based on their younger lives when they were single, swinging bachelors and big-time gamblers. They call it Guys and Dolls, and it debuts on Broadway to rave reviews and huge numbers. Eventually, Hollywood comes calling and hires Sky and Nathan to write a film version of the play, and they do, and the film becomes a huge success. So Nathan and Sky pack up Sarah and Adelaide and move to Hollywood to become screenwriters. They go on to write some of the most successful Hollywood musicals of all time, including Grease, Newsies, The Rocky Horror Picture Show, Annie, and all that jazz. But that elusive Oscar remains out of their grasp, and they become very focused on winning one. Year after year, they're passed over, until one year, finally, while they're on stage to present an Oscar for Best Musical Score, they break out into an impromptu song about wanting to win an Oscar. The audience joins in, and the night ends with the Academy changing their mind about the night's screenwriting winner and awarding the pair with an Oscar for their latest film.
Oh, brilliant.
Because as we know, songs and musicals change everything.
Yeah, that's right. It's a very good point, yeah. No, I like that you can think that with lots of musicals, though, where it could be based on real people's lives, and they've gone through all those events, and then, as you said, with these characters, they then write it all down and make a musical out of it. That would sort of make sense for lots of musicals.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think it would.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, thank you. So that's our ending for Guys and Dolls. Phil, do you have any exciting trivia about the film?
Well, a few little bits and pieces. The main one is that Frank Sinatra and Marlon Brando really didn't get on.
That's unfortunate.
Frank Sinatra didn't like the fact that Marlon Brando was the starring role while Sinatra got the less. So I can sort of see that.
Yeah.
It would have made a bit more sense to have them flipped around.
Right.
But that's the way it was. Also, Marlon Brando, for his musical numbers, it was put together from multiple takes.
Oh, that I can see. He didn't really like memorizing lines or things like that.
Yeah, he did that, and it was just to get the best one. But apparently he had, when it was done and put together, he then trying to mime to these things. It was just, he said he was trying to rush through. He couldn't breathe at some of it because of the way it was put together, which was interesting. Then there was one bit, there was the scene with the cheesecake. Yeah, it's the scene where Sky and Nathan first meet. They had to quit for the day when Sinatra had too much cheesecake, and he couldn't take one more bite. Turns out that Marlon Brando knew that Sinatra hated cheesecake and deliberately messed up the lines every now and again to watch him eat another piece.
That's great. That seems like a very Brando thing to do. It's a shame they didn't get along. They have great chemistry on screen together, but
oh yeah, I know it's a shame, but you can understand it. I can understand Frank Sinatra because he was a bit of an egomaniac anyway, wasn't he?
Right. Yeah, definitely.
And I always got the impression that Marlon Brando he found the whole acting thing ridiculous, so he just tried to get away with whatever he could.
Right. My understanding is he loved food and money, but didn't really care for acting, but he did it so he could afford lots of food and money. So
well, that's a great way of doing it, yeah.
Yeah, whatever works.
And what's the other thing? Oh, yeah, and Sky Masterson's real name was Obadiah.
Oh, well, that's a odd choice. I would never have guessed.
Yeah, Obadiah Masterson. I like Sky more.
Yeah, I think Sky has a little better ring to it.
Obadiah's like a bad guy.
Yeah, it definitely is.
But that's Guys and Dolls. I think it'd make a good double bill, though, if you're going to watch Guys and Dolls and then Apocalypse Now.
Totally.
I almost started trying to think of a way to get Sky Masterson to become Colonel Kurtz, but that was a bit too much of a stretch.
It's a bit of a stretch, but I'm sure you could have made it work.
Yeah. Frank Sinatra could have been the Dennis Hopper character.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Guys and Dolls. If you have thoughts on our ending or you would like to share your after the endings for it, you can contact us. We'll tell you how to do that at the end of the episode. But for now, why don't we move on to Demolition Man?
Yeah,
Dun, dun, dun.
Murder, Death, Kill.
Phil, why don't you take us through the events that led to Sylvester Stallone in the future?
Okay, well, Demolition Man, 1993 film directed by Marco Brambilla, or Brambilla. It was his directorial debut, and it was a pretty good debut, to be honest.
Yeah, I like it. I thought this film was a lot of fun.
Yeah, an enjoyable action romp, sci-fi action romp. Stars Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, Sandra Bullock, Nigel Hawthorne and Dennis Leary. We open in 1996 where Simon Phoenix, who's Wesley Snipes' character, he's a nasty guy. He's kidnapped some hostages after going on a crime spree, and he's holed up in a warehouse with his gang. LAPD Sergeant John Spartan, again, these got some great names in this film.
Definitely.
He leads an unauthorized assault on the building, but before they go in there, he does a thermal scan and it shows no hostages, just the gang. So they go in to try and take out Phoenix and the other bad guys, but Phoenix blows up the building and the police later find the dead bodies of the hostages. Spartan is charged with manslaughter, and along with Phoenix, they are cryogenically frozen and will be rehabilitated while in the frozen. You know, it's one of those brain download things where it's going on while they're sleeping. We are in the year 2032 in the city, or in the city of San Angeles, which is an amalgamation of Los Angeles. It was an amalgamation of Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Francisco. So the city's now a utopia, but lots of personal freedoms and things have been forbidden. So it's just to keep the peace, and there hasn't been much crime in the intervening years. We are then with Simon Phoenix. He wakes. He's brought out of the cryo freeze for a parole hearing, but while he's there, he suddenly realises that he knows various access codes and things that he needs to escape from the police, which is all a bit odd, and he doesn't quite figure it out. But he's on the run and then goes on a bit of a crime wave. The police of San Angeles haven't seen this for years. They don't quite know how to deal with it. So the solution is to wake John Spartan to help them, which is not the solution I would have gone for, but that's what they do. But he's paired with Lieutenant Lenina Huxley, who's played by the lovely Sandra Bullock. She's his handler, and she also has this quirk where she loves all things 20th century, so it seems a perfect fit. So she's Spartan's guide through 2032 and introduces him to the various things going on, such as the 3 seashells and the fact that everybody loves Taco Bell.
It's the only restaurant left, actually.
Yeah, that's right.
Which
it is, isn't it? Yeah.
In my ideal future, that makes this a utopia, because I could eat Taco Bell every single day for the rest of my life. So
I've been to America a few times, but I've never actually had Taco Bell.
Oh, you've never had Taco Bell, Phil?
No.
Oh man, I gotta tell you, I have an unhealthy obsession with Taco Bell, actually. So if a Taco Bell, anybody listening who works at corporate wants to sponsor us, I can. I'd be more than happy to share my love for Taco Bell every single episode. So just just give us a call.
Well, funny enough though, I was reading apparently the European version, it was changed for Pizza Hut.
Oh, really?
With logos rechanged and redubbed, but I'm sure when I've seen the film, it's always been Taco Bell.
Right. That's interesting.
But I might be mistaken, but I can understand why they change these kind of things sometimes. But
well, that makes sense if people don't know Taco Bell. But it's a culinary delight, Phil. I'm telling you.
Okay, well, I shall try it one day.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not disappointed, Mike.
It's a lot to live up to. I think it will. Listen, if you want the best, cheap Mexican-ish food around.
Mexican.
You can't beat Taco Bell.
Okay.
Boy, I'm just really winning over those sponsors with the way I describe it, aren't I?
Yeah, I think, well, that's going to be it.
They're going to be like, oh, well, definitely getting on this guy.
After the ending, sponsored by Taco Bell.
Hey, I think it's a pairing made in heaven, so,
Okay. Well,
just saying.
Yeah. You heard it here first, people.
Yeah, let's get back to the film then.
Okay, so Phoenix, he's on the way to take out Dr. Raymond Cocteau, who's played by Nigel Hawthorne, and who's sort of the de facto ruler of San Angeles. He's the one preaching all this peace, love, hope, and all this thing. Once Phoenix gets there and he tries to shoot Cocteau, he finds he's unable to. It's sort of like a RoboCop kind of thing going on with OCP. But it turns out that Cocteau was the one who fed all the information into Simon Phoenix while he was in cryo. Cocteau's not a very nice man.
No.
And he asked Phoenix to kill resistance leader Edgar Fenley, who's played by Dennis Leary. And to do that, Phoenix releases more criminals. Things aren't looking good for the police force of San Angeles. Luckily, though, John Spartan's there. He helps Edgar Fenley fight Phoenix. And Phoenix tells Spartan that the 1996 hostages were already dead, meaning Spartan was innocent. Oh no, Spartan's destroyed. His life was frozen for no good reason. But he's determined to get revenge on Phoenix even more. Eventually, after various comings and goings, Phoenix again tries to kill Cocteau because he doesn't like being controlled. but he can't. And Cocteau thinks he's got the upper hand, but then Phoenix points out that the criminal gang that he's got behind him can actually kill Cocteau, and boom, there we go. Spartan chases Phoenix down to the prison. They fight and have, major fisticuffs. Things get blown up, things get burnt. There's lots of nitro things floating around in the air. And Spartan wins by freezing Phoenix and then breaking him apart into a billion pieces. We end the film with the police and the resistance meeting up and working together to make a better society, which isn't quite as strict, a bit more human and a bit more fun. The end.
Very nicely done.
So there you have it. That's Demolition Man. So what do you have, Mike, for the day after?
Well, you may recall that in the film, Spartan and Huxley attempt to have, shall we say, a romantic liaison, only to find out that it's done mostly through like a virtual reality synaptic connection.
Yeah.
And at the end of the film, Spartan kisses Huxley and she's all a tingle because that's what she never really knew what physical contact was like. So after the film ends, Spartan takes Huxley back to her apartment and teaches her the real way to get romantic.
Mm-hmm.
In return for him showing her such a good time, she teaches him finally to use the 3 seashells.
Yes.
Which is very important for him. And for those people who haven't seen the film or who don't remember, the 3 seashells was basically the replacement for toilet paper in the future. It's just 3 shells on a shelf. It was kind of a running gag throughout the film that he never knew how to use it, and they never explained it. So,
well, apparently Stallone did, though, in an interview.
Oh, really?
And it still doesn't make much sense.
There you go.
Yeah, he was saying he used them 2 of them like chopsticks to pull, and then the third was used to scrape what was left over. But then it's not very sanitary. It just doesn't make. Yeah,
I always assumed it was some sort of like sonic cleaning system and that controlled the
That's what I always went with that. It was just they just happened to be shaped like seashells, yeah.
Right. Well, I'm going to keep the mystery and just say that she teaches him to use the 3 seashells. We still don't know exactly how they work.
Yeah.
The next day, Spartan asks Huxley for her help in tracking down his daughter because we know that his wife died, but we don't ever find out what happened to his daughter. She agrees to help him and assumes that it's going to be a simple matter of looking her up in the computer. But when she tries to find her, the computer finds no record of her. Not just a current record, but any record of her existing at all. This sets Spartan out on a mission to find his daughter.
Nice.
And that's my day after. All right, thank you. So, Phil, how about you? How's your day after take us?
Well, it's a little bit similar to yours. Spartan and Huxley, after the major events that have gone on, they deserve a break. And so they head off to the beach and have a few wild and crazy days full of sun, booze, sex, proper sex, and Taco Bell.
I'm just going to say that I think the fact that a very young and attractive Sandra Bullock was one of the leads in this film clearly had an impact as we both went right to they go back and have sex right away.
Well, it's just, it's just the way it was set up.
I know.
With that machine thing.
Right, exactly.
But
not a coincidence, obviously.
I know. I know. But it's funny enough, though, Laurie Petty originally played the character. Sandra Bullock did, but only for a few days of filming. Then they replaced it with Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock is great in this movie.
Yeah, it was sort of like a big... So was it like a breakout role, this one? Or was it
this was this was right before Speed. So this was sort of the role that when Speed came out, eagle-eyed viewers like myself were like, hey, that's the girl from Demolition Man, because nobody really remembered her name at that point. And then, of course, Speed, she became a household name. But this was actually kind of her first big break,
Okay. We should do an after the ending for Speed, because Speed 2 is dreadful, so we can ignore that.
We can just ignore it. Yeah. I'm fine with that.
Okay, so Spartan and Huxley are having a great time, and meanwhile the police start checking the prison after all the damage that was done by Spartan and Phoenix, and they find that a number of criminals were still unaccounted for. They didn't get the whole gang. Edgar Friendly and the rebels are glad that they no longer have to hide, and talks are going on between them and the police just to see about what they're going to do and how things are going to work out. So that's my day after. What about your immediate aftermath?
All right, well, Spartan goes to Edgar Friendly for help. Friendly is working with the government now to try and fix the societal problems that led to the scraps, the resistance fighters, being marginalized and having to live underground. Spartan figures he'll probably have some contacts that can help him since he knows, since he was kind of a de facto criminal, if you will.
Yeah.
So Friendly doesn't have the answers, but he connects Spartan with a network of what he calls the 9 old men, who are sort of like a quorum, if you will, of old men who served as kind of an advisory council when he was leading the underground. They're basically all grizzled old, like, war veterans who had been through the worst of the 20th century and seen kind of the worst that the old world had to offer.
Okay.
So Spartan thanks him, goes off with Huxley to meet them so they can help him find his daughter. When he arrives at their headquarters, which is an abandoned warehouse, of course, he's introduced to them. Their names are Barney Ross, Jack Carter, Gabe Walker, Raymond Tango, Marion Cobra Cobretti, Lincoln Hawk, Freddie Heflin, John Rambo, and Rocky Balboa.
Oh, Oh, excellent! Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, you've gone full meta.
I went full meta today. I know it's bad, isn't it? I
No,
can't
it's
help
really
it.
good. I like that.
So the group agrees to help Spartan find his daughter, and that's where we leave things for now. How about you? What do you got for the immediate aftermath?
So the immediate aftermath: Spartan and Huxley are still together, stayed together. They get on really well. They have a great time, but it's they've still got a lot to do. They end up leading a police task force to bring in the escaped criminals. These criminals, while they've been out there, they've also started recruiting other people who weren't too happy, spreading the badness, as it were. But Spartan and Huxley, this task force that's put together, they're very successful. But the various crimes and the few murders which have been happening lead to the general population starting to panic. However, now they've got Edgar Fenley there. He helps by going on TV and giving regular updates. He becomes the face of the new world order, as it were. Various personal freedoms are slowly reintroduced. It will all take time, but things are looking good for the future. However, a couple of the criminals, led by a guy called Winston Smith, who managed to fake his death, they leave San Angeles. They travel deeper into America, and he gets hold of a nuclear bomb. Mm-hmm. And through judicious planning and a bit of luck, he ends up setting it off, and that causes a small-scale conflict within the US. Mm-hmm. So it's not that good at the minute, but that's where I leave you, and we now go to your long term.
All right, I have a sneaking suspicion we may have ended up in a similar place, but in very different ways.
Yeah,
so
I think so too.
We'll see what happens. I think you went more in that direction than I did, but that's okay.
Okay.
All right, so my long term. The 9 old men used their underground connections to point Spartan in the right direction. It turns out his daughter was involved in a secret government project that was so classified that her entire existence had been wiped from the public record. Spartan and Huxley travel across the country to New York so that Spartan can be reunited with her. They find her outside her apartment where she's living under a fake name with a new identity. After a tearful reunion with his daughter, she reveals that the project she's been working on is actually time travel. She offers to send John back to his own time, which takes him aback because he's just starting to get used to the idea of living in the future. Ultimately, he decides to stay in the future because he realizes that even with all the flaws in the future society, it's still better than the world that he's left behind, and it has the possibility of improving even more. So Spartan and Huxley head back to California, where they take up the reforms of the justice system, and Spartan really becomes ultimately known for his catchphrase, which he says mostly as a joke, but it becomes what he's most famous for, and that catchphrase is, "I am the law."
Yep.
And I had a feeling. So there we go. That's my long term. So take us home, Phil. You went. I think you went full.
Yeah.
Full. I am the law. So let's see what happens.
Okay. So my long term. There are some similarities, but I think it's the nature of the game when you got Stallone involved and
of course,
futuristic law enforcement.
Yep.
Spartan and Huxley had a good life together. They brought in a lot of criminals. They made a big difference. They helped track down Winston Smith, who started this terrible event which had gone on. Years have gone by, and Spartan and Huxley, after a good life, they both died of old age. They managed to do what everybody in law enforcement wants to do, get out and live a long time afterwards there. But their legacy lives on. However, large areas of America became a radioactive wasteland in the small conflict that went on. San Angeles, due to the fact that the work of Spartan and Huxley, they managed to keep things together. But other large urban areas in the US fall into chaos. But to help combat this chaos, a new form of law enforcement based on the work of John Spartan is put into effect on the east coast of America. It's decided that Spartan is needed once more, so he is cloned, and it is hoped he will bring fear and dread to the criminal underworld.
Yep.
The clone, knowing he is not the original John Spartan, he decides to change his name to Joe and heads out to his first shift on the streets of Mega City 1.
Very nice. Very nice. It's not surprising that we both ended up coming to Judge Dredd. Like you said, Stallone, futuristic law enforcement. I mean, it's a very natural kind of connection to make. So not the first time we've done that, and probably not the last.
Yeah, and it sort of makes the appeal of the Stallone Judge Dredd a little bit,
right.
A bit better.
Got to find something good to say about it, right?
That's what frustrated me with the Judge Dredd film, though, was the fact it looked so good. They got Mega City 1 looking so good.
Yep.
And you know, you had one of the ABC Warriors in the background. You got the huge block war thing going on.
Yep.
And then it just
You know what I thought was funny too? When I was watching Demolition Man, I forgot that Rob Schneider was in it.
Yes, yeah.
He has a small role. And I was like, what is it with Stallone and Schneider in futuristic law enforcement movies? Like, it's bad enough that Schneider kind of ruined Judge Dredd, and now he's here in this movie too? I'm like, what, did like Stallone lose a bet or something?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought that was very strange.
I get the impression they probably just really get on with each other.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
Could be one of those things.
You know, it's funny. I remember when the original Judge Dredd with Stallone came out, I actually really liked it. And I was one of the only people, obviously. But then they put it out on Blu-ray a couple of years ago, and I was like, oh, sweet, I love that movie. And I watched it again, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I was thinking that first time around.
No, I sort of had the same thing. Yeah, I saw it and was going, wow, yeah. And then seeing it again, and you're going, whoa.
Yeah, they just did not do a good job with it.
It's that first 10 minutes, though, when he's taking down the gangs, and you go,
yeah, and he still has the helmet on and everything.
Yeah,
like,
I think they've got this, and then they just, no.
Yeah, it went right down the tubes, but...
Still, it was good for this Demolition Man after the ending, anyway.
Exactly, it served its purpose for us. Yes. That's right. But I do. Demolition Man is a very fun film. Judge Dredd is not. So if you're looking for a futuristic Stallone cop movie, I recommend Demolition Man over Judge Dredd.
And it hasn't aged too badly.
No, it really hasn't actually. Yeah. I think it holds up pretty well. I mean, there's definitely a few parts that are kind of a little cheesy or silly here or there, but by and large, I just watched it a couple nights ago, and I really enjoyed watching it. If you take it for what it is, which is a '90s action film with Sylvester Stallone, you know, it's a good time. It's a really good time.
Yeah, it really is.
All right, so Phil, how about some interesting tidbits about this film?
Okay, well, the character Sandra Bullock played was called Lenina Huxley, which was based on...
Was it Aldous Huxley?
Yes, Aldous Huxley.
Yes, score one for the English major.
And also from his book, Brave New World,
right.
The character is called Lenina Crown. So that's where they got the first name from.
Oh, I didn't catch.
Yes, well, I mean, I didn't get that one either. But we got that one. Also, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal were offered... were the original choices for the film. Van Damme was offered the role of the bad guy, so that was Simon Phoenix, but he didn't want it. So he said he'd do the film, but if it could be swapped around. But Steven Seagal didn't want to play the bad guy.
Right.
I'm glad
it
wasn't either of them, to be honest, because Jean-Claude Van Damme's done a few sci-fi action films anyway.
Right.
Time Cop and stuff like that.
Yep.
And also Jackie Chan was offered the role of Simon Phoenix, but he declined.
Yeah, interesting.
That could be, I don't know. I can't really see him in the film. I couldn't see him working.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. That one's not working for me either.
And also, there's Wesley Snipes apparently had to slow down his kicks and punches as his real ones because he's a black belt in whatever martial art it is. Right. The real punches and kicks were so fast that they blurred on camera.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely knows his stuff in that arena. That's for sure.
And Jack Black had a cameo.
Yes, that I caught.
He's one of the scraps. Yeah.
I caught his name in the credits. I didn't see him, but I did catch his name in the credits.
Oh, yeah, and I quite like this. The action figure of Demolition Man in full armor was a repainted He-Man action figure from the 1990 line. Yeah, well, it could have been a totally different film if you had Laurie Petty, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Steven Seagal.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been quite as well remembered if that was the cast.
I think it would have been like a direct-to-DVD thing.
Yeah, probably.
So there you go.
All right, so those are our endings for Demolition Man. Hope you enjoyed them. Phil, what do you say we move on to our newest mini-feature?
Yes, let's do it. This should be a fun little one to do.
Yeah, I think so too. So we decided to do a new feature called Recasting the Classics, where we are going to take a classic film of our choosing, and we are going to cast it as if it were being made today, using today's actors, and we're going to decide who we think would best fill the roles that were made iconic by somebody else in the past. So, Phil, what film are we doing tonight?
Well, first of all, let's let the listeners know some of the names we were trying to come up with for this one.
You're gonna pull those out on me, aren't you?
Yeah, where are they?
Thanks, Phil.
They're good names.
Okay, all right. Let's hear them then.
So, I said Recasting Classics, which was all right, but then you gave it the little finesse it needed, so it's actually called Recasting the Classics, but these are some of the ones that Mike came up with. Hold on, it's like a tongue twister. Classic Casting Cacophony Craziness.
That's a winner.
Classic Casting Cacophony, I can't do it too fast. But my favourite was Crazy Corporate Classic Casting Cartel of Crazy Climaxes.
I don't know why we didn't go with that one, actually.
Okay, well, here we go then, listeners. Here we are with the first episode of Crazy Corporate Classic Casting Cartel of Crazy Climaxes.
All right, sometimes I send Phil ideas late at night. This is what happens.
I was sat in a beer garden when you sent this over, so I was finding these quite amusing.
Oh, I'm sure. So you were very receptive to them. You're like, yeah, sounds good.
I was going, this is the best name ever.
All right, well, I think we'll stick with Recasting the Classics for now. But today we decided to start with the granddaddy of them all, and that is
Star Wars. A New Hope.
That's right. Figured why not start with pretty much the most popular film of all time. Okay, so the rules are pretty simple. Basically, we're recasting the major roles from the film that we pick. We can only use people who are acting currently, and I think that's about all the rules we have, right, Phil?
I think so. We can always add more if we need to, but yeah.
If we need to. So let's work our way from the bottom up. How's that sound? We'll go from the smaller characters to the biggest characters.
Okie doke.
All right, so how about C-3PO? Who'd you pick for C-3PO?
C-3PO, I picked Jim Parsons from The Big Bang Theory.
Oh, great choice.
Sheldon Cooper, yes.
I didn't think about him. I picked Martin Freeman,
who
you probably know best as Bilbo Baggins, and also from the Fargo TV show. I think he has that kind of nebbishy British sort of effect that would work. So
didn't he played an android in the Hitchhiker's? Oh no, he was in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He didn't do. Who did the voice of Marvin the Paranoid Android?
Wasn't that Alan Rickman?
Yeah, it was Alan Rickman.
Yep.
Yeah. There we go.
How about Grand Moff Tarkin?
Grand Moff Tarkin would be Lance Henriksen.
That's funny that you picked him for that, actually. Very interesting. All right. Nice choice.
Yeah, so people, if you're not aware, Lance Henriksen, you'll all be aware if you listen to this, but for the ones who maybe don't, he was in Aliens, Pumpkinhead, and lots of other brilliant things.
And Millennium, the TV
Millennium, all of that show. I need to get that on DVD. Still not got that on DVD. Love that show, though.
So for my Tarkin, I actually went and I flipped the gender, and I picked Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, I like that.
Because now that she's a little older, she's got kind of like a real intensity to her. Not that she didn't always. I mean, she's a great actress, but I thought, like, wouldn't it be cool to see her with like her hair all slicked back, playing like, like
she'd be really good, wouldn't she?
Right, big tough bad guy, kind of like Ripley if she went really, really wrong. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you mean. Though, when I mentioned Lance Henriksen, then we've got the Aliens duo going on. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. All right. How about Ben Kenobi?
Ben Kenobi. Well, first of all, I was thinking I was going to gender swap Ben Kenobi as have it as Judi Dench.
Oh, a good choice.
Judi Dench. But then I decided no. I then went with Timothy Dalton. I think he'd make a really good Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah. I like that.
But it'd be a bit more intense than Alec Guinness.
Right. Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, this is our casting version, so I think it's okay to switch things up a little bit.
So what about your Ben Kenobi?
Well, funny you should mention that. I picked Lance Henriksen for my Ben Kenobi.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because I thought he's a little more of kind of a grizzled, dark version. But Ben Kenobi, like, everyone likes to sort of make him out to be like he's a big teddy bear, but he's kind of a little gruff at times, you know? So I thought that our version with Lance Henriksen, he'd be a little bit more, a little more of a tougher Jedi.
Yeah, I could see him. He would look like he's been living in the desert for a long time.
Exactly. It's
good choice for Kenobi.
How about your choice for Darth Vader?
Well, Darth Vader, I'm just going with the voice because you just need some. Not saying that David Prowse didn't do a great job, but you do. They didn't use his voice in the final cut, so you need a big guy inside. So that could be any big guy, who can act.
Right.
But I'm going with the voice. I would pick Clancy Brown.
Ah, yes, a favorite of ours.
Yes, the Kurgan from Highlander.
Yeah, that's right.
Great voice.
Very nice. Well, I similar to you, I went with the voice mostly, but also somebody who could play in the suit, I think, if he needed to, and I went with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think we saw with Smaug, he can play a good bad guy.
Yeah.
And he certainly got the screen presence for it, so.
Yeah, I could hear his voice coming out.
All right, how about Han Solo?
Han Solo, well, I was going to go with the obvious thing of Chris Pratt. Because, Indiana Jones, everybody was saying, Chris Pratt should do the young one. But
somehow he didn't occur to me, but I probably would have picked him if he did.
But I didn't go with him in the end. But then I was going to gender swap Han Solo. And I thought Eva Green.
Oh,
because I just thought that'd be mad. But I could see her doing it. She's got that. She can be playful and cocky and do all that kind of stuff and a bit goofy.
Yeah, definitely.
But then in the end, I went with Michael Fassbender.
Okay, Michael Fassbender. I like that. That's a good choice.
I thought he'd be good because he can do the same as well. He's usually quite intense, but he's also... he's got a good comedic talent, and he can mix things up.
Yeah, he can do anything pretty much, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Well, I went with a slightly different direction with Han Solo, and I actually picked Nathan Fillion.
Oh yeah.
Because I figured, even though he's getting a little older, but Han is definitely older than Luke and Leia by a bit. So I figured, he kind of already sort of played a Han Solo character in Firefly.
Oh, such a good show. Why did it get cancelled?
It was. I know. But so I thought Nathan Fillion would make a good space cowboy, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Nathan. I should have picked you as well. That's a better choice for Han Solo. So Nathan,
no, they're both good choices.
We know you're a regular listener, so
right. You got my vote, Nathan. Just ignore Phil, Mr. Fassbender over here.
Damn it.
All right. How about Princess Leia?
Princess Leia. I was going to go with Chloe Grace Moretz, Moretz, however she likes to be known now. But then, I don't know, it didn't seem to go. I was thinking, because they originally meant to be teenagers, weren't they? So I was trying to cast with the age, but then it didn't quite work for me.
Right.
So I decided that Emma Stone would be Princess Leia.
That's a good choice. She's very like sassy,
Yeah.
you know, very intelligent, very, you know, just great choice.
Okay, and what about yours?
Well, you know, it's funny because she was probably the character I had the hardest time with, and so I actually eventually settled on Olivia Wilde.
Oh yeah,
Who I think, you know, was in Tron and Tron Legacy, I should say, and a bunch of other movies for people who don't know her. But you know, I figure she's got the beauty part down because she's obviously quite beautiful. But I've seen her in a number of different roles. You know, some more dramatic, some more comedic. I think she kind of can do the strong and sassy bit, but also can be a little more demure when she needs to. So I thought it would make an interesting choice for Princess Leia.
No, she'd be good because I like it when she pops up in Portlandia. She's very funny in that thing she does there.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, and for the farm boy who saves the galaxy, who do we have for Luke Skywalker?
I have picked Evan Peters.
Ah, good.
You know, who played Quicksilver in X-Men, in the last X-Men movie, and he's going to be in X-Men Apocalypse.
Right.
And he was in American Horror Story. Yeah, he's in that as well, isn't he? But yeah, I think I could see him as Luke Skywalker. He's got a bit. He can be the innocent, but then when Luke goes a bit dark, he can bring the intensity as well.
Right. Excellent.
So that's that. What about your Luke Skywalker?
I like that. Well, I'll tell you, I was really close to going with Ty Sheridan, which I think will be a surprise to nobody because he's the right age. I think he's a great actor, you know. But ultimately, I ended up going with Grant Gustin, who plays the Flash on TV, because I think that his Barry Allen character is very similar in ways to Luke. You know, kind of naive.
Yeah.
You know, very kind of got that sort of farm boyish type of attitude, you know, but when he needs to, he can get stuff done, you know. So I thought he would make a kind of a good choice. He's kind of got that. He's real skinny, you know, he's not like a big muscle bound guy.
Yeah,
so I thought he could be a fun choice for Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, Grant Gustin as Luke Skywalker. Then you can have Melissa. Oh, what's her name? Plays Supergirl as Princess Leia.
Melissa Benoist.
Yeah, those two would be good because they were great in the Supergirl episode.
Right. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Good casting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think. Hey, listen, I think either one of those casts would be a blockbuster. So.
I'd watch either of those casting. Yeah.
So there you go. That's recasting the classics or crazy
corporate classic casting cartel of crazy climaxes.
There you go. You do that quite well.
And Mike hasn't just copied and pasted that. That's me. I've said it every single time.
That's impressive, Phil. Very impressive. All right, so if you like our Recasting the Classics mini feature, let us know. We're always trying to find out which of these mini features you guys are enjoying and which ones you sort of roll your eyes at. So tell us what you think. And also, if you have a cast of Star Wars that you think would be cool, send it our way, and we would love to share it on the air. We'll fill you in on how to do that in just a little bit.
I enjoyed that. Personally, if I was voting, I'd pick this one as a mini feature because I really enjoyed that one.
Oh, good. Well, I did too.
Yeah, good choices.
Chances are good, listeners, you'll hear that one again in the future.
Yeah, Nathan Fillion as Han Solo. Yeah, I should have picked that myself.
You know what? You're always going to forget people that you didn't think of, and then you're going to go, oh, why didn't I think of that? You know, so.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on then, it is time for 100 Years of Film in 100 Episodes, the section of the show where we take a random year from Hollywood's first 100 years, and we share our top 10 favorite films from said year. This year, Phil, we are doing...
1997.
Yes. So why don't you jump in that time machine of yours, take us back to 1997, and set the scene.
So 1997, what did we have? Here in the UK, we had Tony Blair being sworn in as PM, while over in the US, Bill Clinton was inaugurated for his second term. We learned about Dolly the sheep being a clone. The comet Hale-Bopp makes its closest approach to Earth, and there was various doomsday cults saying, oh my god, we're all going to die, and we didn't unless we are currently living in a hologram kind of Matrix thing.
Right, we might be. You never know.
Yeah, who knows? Teletubbies debuted in the UK.
Hooray.
Yeah. 1997, I can't believe they're that old. But over in Japan, the Pokemon animated show premiered, which was a little bit better than Teletubbies.
Yeah, so quite successful.
IBM's Deep Blue defeated Garry Kasparov, which was the first time a computer had beaten one of the Grandmasters. And a little book called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was published.
Right.
1997, yeah.
Yeah, crazy. And that would be Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for us Americans, because apparently the publishers thought that Americans weren't smart enough to understand the word philosopher. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I never quite understood that, yeah.
Me neither.
Yeah. The first genetically modified three-parent baby was born, which I had no idea.
Three what now? What are you talking about?
Three-parent baby.
What the hell is a three-parent baby?
It's had genes from three parents, apparently.
I don't think we need to talk about that.
I know, it's just crazy, but that was 1997.
That is crazy. Oh, my goodness. All right.
Steve Jobs returned to Apple, and South Park debuted for the first time. We also had a few births. 1997, we had, I've already mentioned it, Chloe Grace Moretz, Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones, and Bella Thorne. But we did lose Terry Nation, who was a big thing about Doctor Who. Yep. The poet, Allen Ginsberg, Jeff Buckley, and then we had Robert Mitchum, James Stewart, Red Skelton, Mother Teresa, John Denver, Michael Hutchins, and Princess Diana all died in 1997.
All right. Well, there you go. So that was 1997, and we are going to share our top 10 films for the year. Phil, why don't you start us off then and share your number 10?
My number 10 is something you'd like to know more about. It is Starship Troopers.
Very good.
Yep. Casper Van Dien, Denise Richards, Neil Patrick Harris, directed by Paul Verhoeven, based on the book by Robert Heinlein. And it's not the greatest film in the world, but I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of pretty people fighting bugs.
It's very Paul Verhoeven, though.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Like I'm a big Paul Verhoeven fan.
Yeah,
and
me too.
He made a very specific kind of movie, and Starship Troopers is that very movie. And you know, it's funny. It's not the greatest film ever made, but people who love it really love it.
Yeah.
And I'm one of them as well.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, it also features Clancy Brown and Michael Ironside.
Well, there you go. And Dina Meyer. Let's not forget her.
Dina Meyer. Yeah, she was great.
Yeah, love her.
I would have liked to have seen her do a lot more.
She keeps busy, though. She keeps busy.
Yeah, she keeps working, yeah. Okay, so that's my number 10. What about yours?
All right, my number 10 is The Edge, starring Alec Baldwin and Anthony Hopkins. This is back when Alec Baldwin was still, a serious actor.
Yeah.
And it's about two men whose plane crashes in the Alaskan wilderness, and they have to make their way back to civilization, fighting off a very angry bear while they're at it. And there's some other intrigue and plots that go on in between, but I love kind of survival thrillers. Anytime it's, man against the elements or man against a wild animal stuff, I always enjoy those. But this film is actually, I've always thought was really good. It's a lot better than sort of the type of, genre film that it could have just been a simple, guy in a bear suit,
Yeah, I mean, you got two good actors.
Right.
Yeah, and also the bear was a great actor because the bear then went on to do The Revenant.
That's right.
And Brother Bear, he was good in Brother Bear as well. He really gets around that one.
He really does. So that's my number 10 pick.
Good stuff. Yeah, I haven't seen that one in a long time now.
Oh, yeah, it's
I'll
good
have
stuff.
to watch that one again, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, my number 9 is Princess Mononoke. Mononoke?
Mononoke.
God, I should listen to the names of these things. Yeah, Princess Mononoke. Studio Ghibli film. As with all their films, it's beautiful. It's wonderful animation. I love all the creature designs, especially the little forest spirits, the clicking heads that walk back and forth. Mm-hmm. And it's a great story, really enjoyable. And it's Studio Ghibli, so it had to be on my list.
Well, that's understandable, and I agree with everything you just said, except for pretty much everything you just said. So, hey, you know what time it is, Phil?
Is it one of your controversial? Go on.
It's time for Mike's controversial opinion of the week.
What's it going to be this time?
I don't really like Studio Ghibli films at all. I know that Miyazaki is considered the second coming of animation. I know that the Studio Ghibli films are very well loved around the world by everyone except for me. I generally just do not like them. I will agree with you that it's a beautiful film. All of their films are amazingly animated. I don't think there's a single one of them that I like.
Oh, not even Spirited Away?
No.
Oh.
No, I really just not a fan.
That's it.
I know. But you better find a new co-host.
But there you go. There are some. I mean, like Grave of the Fireflies.
Yeah,
it's just so bleak and depressing.
It's true.
I think that's with lots. I think pretty much all of their films, though, there is that element of melancholy which goes through it all, like a loss of innocence or a loss of loved ones and things like that. So
loss of my interest.
Yeah, loss of your interest. Yeah, things like that.
Yeah,
but no, it is a controversial one, so add it to the list.
Yeah, we'll just keep a running tab of all the things I can say to anger other movie
Well, I'm hoping
fans.
I have a controversial one. I haven't really had any controversial.
No. Well, you'll get there eventually.
That just means I'm too mainstream.
You've got something to strive for, Phil.
Okay, your next film, I hate it.
Yeah.
Number 9.
No, my number 9 film is a movie that very few people have probably ever heard of. It is called The Wrong Guy. It stars Dave Foley from News Radio and Kids in the Hall and Colm Feore, who's a great character actor who you'll recognize the minute you see him. And it's a comedy. And basically, Dave Foley plays a guy who walks in right after his boss has been murdered, and he thinks that the police think that he did it, so he goes on the run. But the thing is, the police know he didn't do it because there's surveillance footage that shows the real killer. So he spends the rest of the movie on the run from people who aren't chasing him. And Colm Feore plays the actual killer who is trying to kill him. And it's a slapstick, very silly, very funny movie, but man, it makes me laugh because it is just hysterical. And it's one of those movies I always try to make my mission to tell people about so they get a chance to watch it. So that's my number 9 pick.
Well, I was aware of that film, but it's not one I've seen.
Well, you definitely got to track it down because it is really funny.
Yeah.
But as an added bonus, I actually talked to Colm Feore just a couple of months ago, and I got to ask him about The Wrong Guy, and he shared some fun tidbits about that. And a while back, I interviewed Dave Foley, and I also got to ask him about the film. So here are Dave Foley and Colm Feore sharing their reminiscences, if you will, about making The Wrong Guy.
Why is The Wrong Guy one of the most criminally underrated movies of all time?
Well, I guess we said, for that we owe Disney.
Yeah, really?
We made it. We made it with Disney was going to be our U.S. distributor, and through Hollywood Pictures. But in the middle of production, they folded Hollywood Pictures, so we suddenly didn't have an entity that was supposed to be distributing it, and so it was put on the shelves at Disney for 5 years and never released never got a theatrical release. Never even got a DVD or a TV release for over 5 years.
Right.
But it's definitely something I'm incredibly proud of. My writing partners, Jake Hogan and Dave Higgins, and I, we set out to just write, our version of, an early Steve Martin movie or Woody Allen. We wanted to write a really funny, silly movie, and I think we got to make pretty much exactly the movie that we wanted to make. So, and I think it's very funny.
It is.
Every time we show it to people, they like it.
I had the same experience because it's a movie. I'm a huge fan, obviously, of the film, and I played it for a number of my friends over the years, and everybody who watches it just loves it. And I just, I wanted to tell. I imagine you don't get asked about it in interviews too much, so I wanted to let you know that you have some diehard fans of The Wrong Guy out there.
Well, thanks. I know it's sort of a cult film amongst comedy people in L.A. It was even before we made it. It was sort of a cult thing. The script was being bootlegged all over town.
Oh.
Yeah. Writers were all making copies of it and passing it on to each other. So it was like something else, the whole comedy community was reading before we made it. Thank you.
Reaching back a bit on your resume, I'm a very big fan of one of your more obscure movies, one that's also one of your few forays into straight comedy, and that's the film The Wrong Guy, which hopefully you remember making.
It's a classic in the genre.
It is a highly
I can't go to
film.
a university campus without somebody going, you're not a super cop, you're just an ordinary idiot. It's one of my favorite
awesome.
films.
I'm glad to know that. Because it's one of those films I'm always telling people to track down, So I was just curious if that was a fun experience for you to get to kind of, work in that comedy horizon and turn out a film that is,
also because the beauty of it is that, and I've done a few now. I really have done a few with Jennifer Tilly. That was the first one. We've done like 3 so far. But to be able to trust that she and Dave Foley would be funny, and I just had to be straight. And
right.
How funny is it now when the guy down in the basement hands me an Iranian passport? I mean, that just gets funnier as the years go by. Yep. I said Swiss passports. and I get to be the straight guy. I mean, the character, I insisted not have a name. In my chair, on those director's chairs as we stand by for action, it just said T Killer, which T stands for The Killer.
Right.
I just thought it was the most fun in the world. And I'm waiting and longing for them to redo it and reissue it with some of the deleted scenes, because there's some funny stuff that didn't make it in the final. Because I don't know if you knew or were following the Hollywood lore at the time, but the arm of Disney or Paramount, or whatever it is that we were working under, kind of collapsed on its own weight as we were filming, and we kind of got orphaned. And and that was as we went into post-production, and so there wasn't as much support and push for it. So it ended up being, having to be slightly cult-like. But it's a terrific picture, and I think very funny, and I loved being part of it. If they were going to do Wrong Guy too, I keep telling people, I said, look, it's like The Fugitive, only Harrison Ford's a complete idiot. He's on the run, but no one's actually chasing him. Right. And whenever I meet somebody who's in on this, I go, Jones, Enema Bag Jones. I mean, that stuff is just, it works.
That was good to hear. I like that.
Yeah, so sort of our second special guest in a way, if you
yeah.
will. A little tidbit from Colm Feore there. Again, if you don't recognize the name, look him up. You'll definitely know him as soon as you see him. He's been in a lot of great films. The Riddick films he was in with Vin Diesel, and just so many other things. It's hard to list them all.
He was in the most recent was season 4 of House of Cards. He was the general.
Right, there you go. That's my number 9 pick. Phil, how about your number 8?
My number 8. It's a horror film. Well, a horror sci-fi. It is Event Horizon.
Liberate Tutame.
That's the one. Lovely film. Directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. And sorry, Paul, it's probably your best film because I don't really rate much of the others. They have the moments, have enjoyable things, but I really enjoyed Event Horizon. Stars Lawrence Fishburne, Sam Neill, who else? Kathleen Quinlan, Jolie Richardson. It's a ghost story set on a spaceship, and it's I just thought it was great fun. I went to see it at the big
it's
screen.
A creepy flick.
Yeah, creepy. It's got a good soundtrack. It's a bit over the top in places, but it's got great. I love the design of the ship and just what goes on.
Yeah, good choice. I can't say I don't like it. Can't say I love it. It's sort of in the middle for me, but it's a good choice. It's a very interesting film.
It's one of those ones. Whenever you're flicking through the channels late at night, if it's on, you just have to watch it to the end. One of those films. We all have those films.
Right. Yep, definitely.
So what about your number 8?
All right, my number 8 is Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. That's the first Austin Powers film. I don't think I have to say too much about it. I saw it in theaters on opening night. I'm proud to say. A lot of people saw that movie on video for the first time, but since I was such a big fan of So I Married an Axe Murderer, which was Mike Myers' previous film.
I love that one as well.
Exactly. I went to see Austin Powers opening night, and I loved it, of course. So there you go. Very funny film. That's my number 8.
Well, it almost made my list, but it didn't quite.
Oh, all right.
But yeah, it's always enjoyable. Always makes me laugh. For my number 7, I've got James Mangold's Copland.
Excellent choice.
Thank you very much. Stars Sylvester Stallone, Harvey Keitel, Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, Peter Berg, Janine Garofalo, Robert Patrick, Michael Rappaport. I mean, with a cast like that, it's an amazing cast.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's still one of those films that not everybody's seen or even heard of.
It's very underappreciated.
Yeah, and it's one of Stallone's best acting roles because if you haven't seen it, he plays a cop he's not a big action hero in this film. He's just playing a sheriff who's trying to do the best he can with the situation that's going on around him. But it's really worth watching. It's a good drama, good thriller, and with an amazing cast.
Couldn't agree more, Phil. Couldn't agree more. All right, so my number 7 film is a movie I think might show up on your list. We'll see.
Okay.
It is The Game, directed by David Fincher and starring Michael Douglas and Sean Penn. It is a twisty thriller that is funny in that it sort of gives you the entire movie in just the setup.
But
then you still don't know what's going to happen until the very end. And I love it. Love it, love it, love it. It's just a fantastic thriller. And honestly, it should have been higher on my list, but this is such a tough year.
Yeah, lots of big films, good films out in 97.
Yeah, a lot of really good stuff came out this year. So it only came in at number 7, but it is a film that I love quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a great film.
All right, moving on.
So my number 6 is LA Confidential. Again, it's another great, like Copland, it's got an amazing cast. We've got Kevin Spacey, Russell Crowe, Guy Pearce, James Cromwell, David Strathairn, Kim Basinger, and Danny DeVito, and it just oozes style. It's loosely based on a James Ellroy novel of the same name, and it's a great crime thriller with some amazing characters. And you think the bad ones, people you think are the bad ones aren't actually that bad, and vice versa. And it's a wonderful film.
Absolutely. You know what I love about LA Confidential is every time I watch it, I basically forget what's going to happen.
Yeah, I do as well.
It doesn't matter. It's always one of those when I watch it, I'm like, I don't remember the story at all. And then I watch it and I get completely engrossed in it from start to finish again. So
many nice little bits and things. And just the way it's all put together, the set dressing and the clothes and everything.
Yeah, brilliant film. All right, so my number 6 is Kevin Smith's Chasing Amy, which stars Ben Affleck and Jason Lee and Joey Lauren Adams. And I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. I make no bones about that. But Chasing Amy is hands down my favorite film of his. It's the one that I think he best combined his sensibilities of, cheap, lowest common denominator humor and also a real heartfelt story that was much more realistic in its portrayal of people's relationships than any of his other movies had been up until that point, and for the most part since then as well.
Yeah,
so
wasn't quite as wasn't quite as silly as some previous films.
Right, but still a very funny movie, and has a lot of
yeah.
great lines that I can quote. And it's one of those films that it came out at a certain time in my life. As I was in my early 20s, and I was in love with all of his movies, and this was the one that really hit home for me. And I've watched it a million times and never get tired of it. So that's Chasing Amy.
Yeah, another great film. It almost made my list, but didn't.
Okay.
But it's I do like Kevin Smith's films. So for my number 5, we've got Donnie Brasco, directed by Mike Newell, starring Al Pacino and Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp's playing an undercover cop who mixes up with the mafia and becomes best friends with Al Pacino's character. And it's I like mafia films, I like undercover cop films, and Al Pacino and Depp were both on the top of the game with this one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Phil. Couldn't agree more. It's a brilliant film.
And it's one, again, I hadn't seen for a while, but it was doing the list, reminding me of it, and I'm going to be putting that on, I think, over the next few days.
Yeah. Always worth watching. Well, my number 5, we're starting to get into the territory now where most of the films on my list you've already mentioned, so okay. I'll move along pretty quickly at this point. My number 5, Starship Troopers. Much like you, I think it's a great film that's, it's silly and over the top, but it's just good science fiction action with a neat kind of satirical edge to it, and I love it. So it was a little higher on my list than on yours.
But it's a really good film. I never really didn't enjoy any of the sequels, to be honest.
Nah, they're all kind of garbage, but the first one's a classic.
Which is a shame. I was hoping they'd sort of carry it on a bit more, but they didn't.
Yes, I think it's inevitable at some point they're going to remake it, though, and then hopefully they can kind of make it and relaunch the whole saga with, better, more... Because all the sequels went direct to video.
That's
they had low budgets and stuff, so I think maybe they could make a proper franchise out of it, given enough time.
Yeah. Okay, well, my number 4... is Con Air.
Really?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's just one of these ones. It's directed by Simon West. Stars Nicolas Cage, John Cusack, John Malkovich, Steve Buscemi, Colm Feore, Ving Rhames, Danny Trejo. It's a stupid action film, but it's just one of those ones where I just have a big smile on my face whenever I watch it.
I can understand that. I love those kinds of movies, but for some reason, that movie, I just never... I mean, it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
I think I like it more now than I did when it came out. Maybe I think I was expecting too much from it when it came out,
Yeah.
But it's just one that I was never able to really fully embrace all that much. But
don't get me wrong, though. I'm surprised it's as high as it is on my list. But as I was going through it, I was going, but I'd rather watch that one above this, do that, and it just... It worked its way up.
Yeah,
but it's
that's what it comes down to,
John Malkovich is Cyrus the Virus, and Steve Buscemi's character. I love the fact Stephen Buscemi's character is always told he's the worst of the worst.
Right.
And he just basically plays Steve Buscemi throughout it.
Yeah, exactly.
Lots of fun bits. It's one of Nicolas Cage's good films.
Yep.
I think it's just the length of his hair worked for him on that one. But yeah, that was my number 4, Con Air.
All right, very good. Well, here we get into the interesting territory for me, because I think my top 4 films probably all would qualify as 4 of my favorite films of all time.
Okay.
And so I honestly had a really hard time when we started looking at 1997, because these are 4 films that I've seen dozens of times. I love them all. I mean, honestly, any one of these 4... if it was a different year, would have easily been my number 1.
Yeah.
But I couldn't make them all number 1, so putting them in order was really challenging.
I was surprised how many good films there were in this year. I didn't realize they were all the same year.
Yeah, 97 was a surprisingly good year for movies, actually. Yeah. So at number 4, I have L.A. Confidential.
Oh, yes.
Which we've already spoken about, but I obviously love it as much as you, if not more, and it's just a brilliant film. And like I said, I love that every time I watch it, it's like watching a new movie all over again.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Very good. Well, my number 3, we're in the top 3 now. Yeah, my number 3 is Luc Besson's The Fifth Element.
Yes.
Starring Bruce Willis, Mila Jovovich, Gary Oldman, and it just looks amazing. It's got like one of the best futurescapes, future cities. I love all the work of Jean Mobius Girard and all those like French, the French European comic book artists.
Yep.
I think it's because it's got Luc Besson's the whole European sensibility to it. It's a sci-fi film which is a bit different. I know some people don't quite like it, or it feels like the last half it changes pace a bit, but I think it just works really well. The only reason why it's probably not higher is because of Chris Tucker's character. I can understand the character and why he's like that, but it was just a little bit too much. I mean, he works well. It's just a bit too much in your face, and that's the only downside to the film for me personally.
I like Fifth Element. Yeah. I enjoy it, but it didn't make my list.
Well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. But Bruce Willis, it's one of Bruce Willis's good roles as well. He just
yeah.
I got the impression, I'm not sure if he actually did, but he seemed to be enjoying himself.
Yeah, which has been a while since that happened, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree. I think he definitely had fun making that film.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to seeing Luc Besson's Valerian, which seems to be along similar lines. 'Cause that's based on another comic book.
Right. Yeah, that should be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. So what about your number 3?
All right, well, my number 3, once again, a film that's been on your list, and it is Copland, which is a movie I've been championing since it came out. I think Stallone's performance in it is brilliant. The fact that he didn't get an Oscar for it, to me, is a major oversight. And it's one of those movies I just love. It's a big ensemble cast. It's a sprawling storyline, very similar to LA Confidential in that respect. I mean, they're different movies, but it's just this, it's such a great film that's so overlooked, and I've introduced it to many people, and I watch it actually every couple of years, and I never, ever get tired of it. And as a special bonus, not long ago, I interviewed Robert Patrick, and I got to speak to him about Copland. And so here's what he had to say about that.
Starting at the beginning, how did you get involved with the film?
Well, that's a great story. Probably the most interesting one I have about the film, amongst others, I guess, but probably the most interesting one. I was in New York doing press for the film Striptease, and Pete Berg, the director, then he was just an actor,
Right.
called me and asked me and my wife to join him at the Oak Room at the Plaza for drinks. And we went over there and we joined him there. And he had Meryl Poster, an executive with Miramax, with him.
Right.
And during the course of the evening over drinks, she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm here doing some press for Striptease." And she said, "No, I got a project that we've been having a problem casting this one role. Would you be interested in reading the script?" And I said, what project are we talking about? She said, Copland. And I said, "Oh, hell yeah, I'd love to read that, and I'd love to meet the director. Let's do it tomorrow." They got me the script, and I read it sort of the next day while I was doing the press for Striptease, intermittently anyway, and ended up meeting Jim Mangold, and then Jim said, "Would you read for me?" And I said, "Absolutely."
And now, so here you come, and obviously you were an experienced actor by this point, but this was certainly a really high-profile project. And here you come into this cast. You've got Keitel, De Niro, Stallone, Ray Liotta. Were you in any way not intimidated, but kind of in awe of some of the people around you, or did you just jump into it and say, I'm here, I'm going to make the most of it?
Well, all the above. I had heard about the project, and I didn't tell Meryl Poster this when she brought it up. "Would you like to come read for it?" I had heard about it, and I think I had even tried to get in on it, and hadn't had much success. So ironically, meeting her in New York and the invitation, I took full advantage of it. Now, I hadn't read the script, but I knew who was involved, and it was a daunting cast.
Right.
It certainly was a little intimidated and also inspired, and that's kind of where you want to be creatively. You would like to think that you can get in there and play with those guys, and that's an exciting notion, and you want to see if you can succeed or not. And so, yeah, I was intimidated, I was excited, and I was inspired.
What was the atmosphere like on set? Because obviously it's kind of a dark movie. Then you've got people like you and Stallone and Keitel, and even the women on the film, like Edie Falco and Janine Garofalo and Annabella Shore, are kind of tougher personalities. Was it a really intense film set, or did you guys have fun while you were making the movie?
I remember it as being a very fun experience, and a very intense experience as well.
Right.
So equally, I think we all realized we were in something special. If you were to ask me my favorite films that I've done, Copland is one of my favorites. If people say, "What's your favorite performance?" it's one of my top favorite performances. And that's all because of Jim Mangold.
Right.
And Mangold writing it and directing it, and you knew you were in on something, right at the cusp of something really great could happen. And then you look around, you're working with that whole cast. Everywhere around you is somebody talented. It was, an exhilarating experience. I was so intimidated by the fact that I didn't have a New York accent. I flew in early and arranged to meet with the New York City Police Department and started to hang out with cops. And they thought I was there to watch their procedure and their tactics and so forth, but I was really there to absorb their accents and the way that they interacted on a personal level. And it was a blessing, and I was able to, catch on to the accent right away. But my first day was a scene with Robert De Niro in which I only had to say 2 words.
Right.
Yeah, hey. That's all I had to say was, yeah, hey. And, I'd never worked with the guy, and he's a legend, and certainly somebody that I look up to. And Jesus Christ, I just remember I was so scared of, just whatever.
Yeah.
You had to be prepared for whatever was going to be thrown at you, but I was preoccupied with hoping I sounded New York enough.
Right.
And it turned out to be quite a funny day. I don't know why, but that anecdote just bugged me.
No, that's a great story, actually. So comparing this film, I'm curious. Obviously Terminator 2, put you on the map and really introduced you to the world at large. But then this movie sort of gave you, really kind of showed the world that you could handle like a real dramatic role. Which one do you think had more of a long-term impact on your career?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, certainly I cannot run from the shadow of Terminator 2.
Right.
That I will forever be associated with. And I do think that Copland did help give me credibility.
Right.
Not only with the audience, but with my fellow castmates as well, and, perhaps the film community at large.
Right.
It's interesting because, I had no doubt, I had confidence in myself, but I don't think I really realized how big that character I created was and how it was going to overshadow pretty much everything I did thereafter. So Copland definitely helped me, and I still believe that there are people that would see Copland and not even know it's the same guy.
Sure. And
that is the greatest compliment I can get, because I worked real hard on that role, and not only for the audience, but for myself, and I am very proud of it as a result. That's a good question, man.
Well, thank you.
Boy, Phil, we're just racking up the special guests, aren't we?
We certainly are. It's just what always got me with Copland, though. I remember, I think with a friend of mine, Paul, he'd mentioned it, and I eventually got to see it, and I was just blown away by how good it was.
Yeah, it's terrific. I really love that movie. It's like I said, any other year that would have been number 1, and the fact that it was actually number 3 tells you what a hard time I had with this year's list.
Well, it's shaping up now. We're into the final 2.
Yeah, what do we got?
My number 2 is, you've already mentioned it, it's David Fincher's The Game, starring Michael Douglas and his trip to Consumer Recreation Services.
Right.
And as you say, it's all there in the beginning, but it's just great seeing the game progress, and you're going, well, is this... I love watching it the first time, just going, well, is this part of the game?
Right.
But then you're going, well, how could everything be? But you just go with it, don't you?
Yeah, it's nothing like that first time seeing it. I mean, it holds up to repeat viewings, but first time was just mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah, and the ending as well.
And I love Michael Douglas, so it's great film. All right, well, my number 2 then, a film that's been on your list as well, and it is Donnie Brasco, which, like I've said, in any other year would have been number 1. I absolutely love Donnie Brasco. I think the relationship between Johnny Depp and Al Pacino is brilliant, and I like mob movies, but there's something about this is one of those movies that kind of like we talked about The Crow last week, where I think people like this movie, and I think people regard it as a good movie, but for me it is one of my all-time favorite movies. Like, I just love this movie, and I watch it, and every time I watch it I'm always, gutted by the end.
Yeah.
And, it's brilliant. So if you haven't seen Donnie Brasco, I think Phil and I can both heartily recommend it to you.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, as you say, the relationship between Pacino and Depp's characters are it's just a fantastic cinema.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm curious, Phil, did we end up at the same place for number 1? Or,
yeah, I'm not sure. It
different
could be.
Places. Let's see. What do you got?
Well, it's a film. My number 1 is a film which stars Alan Arkin, stars Dan Aykroyd.
Nope.
Stars Minnie Driver and John Cusack.
Definitely not.
No, it's Grosse Point Blank.
There you go. Good choice. Good film.
Yes. Got a great soundtrack as well.
Yep.
But it's the one where John Cusack's playing a hitman who's very good at his job, but he's bored, and he goes to see Alan Arkin, I love those scenes with Alan Arkin, who's his therapist. and he goes back to his high school reunion, and it's lots of fun. There's one of the cracking fight scene, the one in the hallway when he's fighting the Russian guy.
Yeah.
It's one of the short, vicious little fights, but it's really good, and it's a very funny film.
Yes, it is indeed. Yeah, good choice. I'm a little bit crestfallen, I think is the word, though, that my number one pick didn't even make your top 10, Phil.
Oh, what is it?
I'm gonna have to hope it's because you haven't seen it.
Oh, go on then.
Because if not, maybe I'll be looking for a new co-host.
Yeah, it could be controversial on this. Go on.
So my number one pick is Gattaca.
Oh, that was on my list. Oh, good God.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. Yeah, it should have. Oh.
Gattaca, starring Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman and Jude Law. And I honestly would have to say, if I was putting together my top 5 movies of all time, Gattaca would be one of them. Now, I know I say this is one of my all-time favorite movies a lot, so we always take that with a grain of salt, but if I had to take 5 movies to a desert island, Gattaca, hands down, will be one of them. And what's interesting is, it's not a movie where much happens.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a very plot-heavy film. It's not an action-heavy film. It's science fiction, but it's light science fiction. But it's this, I hesitate to call it a drama because to me that implies a certain kind of movie, but it's this movie about the human spirit, which sounds awfully pretentious. And it's one of those movies I kind of hate talking about because there's no way to talk about it.
I know what you mean.
And make it sound as good as it is, but to me, that's a movie that will change your life when you watch it. Because
it's like reading a really good science fiction novel.
Yeah.
It's watching Gattaca.
Right, exactly. It's a brilliant film. It makes me cry every time I watch it. I find it so inspiring and so moving and just such a beautiful film. And the director, Andrew Niccol, has gone on to make a bunch of other films, none of which have even come close to being as good as Gattaca. And every time he puts a new movie out, I go and watch it, and I'm always disappointed. And
because he did that. Was it In Time? That one with...
Yeah, he did In Time. He did the Host, which was one of the YA movies. He did Lord of War. He did Simone or Sim 1.
Yeah.
Every movie he puts out, I go and watch it, and I'm constantly disappointed by them. But Gattaca, if you haven't seen it, cannot recommend it highly enough. It is one of the best films of all time, as far as I'm concerned.
It is a brilliant movie. This is just not to go in a thing, but it's one of the one. It was in my top 10, but I was doing like the list of the names. And then before I do the recording, I do like we go over the list again and I change things around and write a bit more about them.
Right.
And I just blanked Gattaca.
Yeah, that happens, right?
It should have been in my top 10. Oh, good God.
That's
right here. But anyway, it makes it a more interesting list.
That's right. That's right. I guess I'll forgive you, though, Phil, since it was left out by accident. I'll let it slide this time.
Yeah, it was going to be in my top 5.
All right. Well, there. Good. All right. So I'm glad we're in agreement on that, at least. So, all right. Well, hey, Phil, great list overall, though, even though you left Gattaca out. I like a lot of your choices. Why don't you tell us what were the top 10 films at the box office? I know Gattaca wasn't one of them, unfortunately.
No, but and there's quite a few films which you didn't mention at all.
Right. Well, sometimes the biggest moneymakers are not the best films. So, what do you got? What's the top 10?
Well, the top 10 was James Bond film number 10, Tomorrow Never Dies.
Mm-hmm. Love Bond, but not a big fan of that one entry in the franchise.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. Number 9, My Best Friend's Wedding, the Julia Roberts film.
Yeah.
Number 8, would have been in my top 10, but it's an old film that was reissued. It was Star Wars, the special edition.
Oh, right. I didn't think we should count that.
Yeah. Number 7 was Good Will Hunting, which was almost in my top 10. I was bubbling under a bit.
Yeah, that was close too for me.
Number 6, As Good as It Gets.
Not a fan. Jack Nicholson, as we know, not a fan.
I do like Jack Nicholson, but it's not one of my favourites. I know people who just love it and watch it over and over, but not that one. Number 5, Air Force One.
Mm-hmm. Good film.
Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman. Yeah, I do like that as well. But
I do too.
Number 4, Liar Liar.
Yeah, that's funny.
Jim Carrey, which is another one of his I enjoy watching.
Right.
Number 3 then was Lost World, Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
Which never really worked for me.
No, it wasn't a great one.
Yeah. Number 2, Men in Black.
Yep, that's a good one. That made my honorable mention list. Yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah, I really liked Men in Black 3 though. I thought that was a really nice return to form.
Yeah, that was pretty clever.
I'm interested to see what they're going to do with the Men in Black.
Yeah, 21 Jump Street crossover.
Yeah.
That should. Yeah. It's either going to be amazingly awesome or completely terrible. I think.
Yeah, I think it's got the potential to do really well at the box office.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But we'll have to wait and see. And number 1 was a film which I really don't care for it, but it's Titanic.
Titanic was, of course, the big behemoth of 1997.
Yeah.
I did want to mention 2 honorable mentions real quickly.
Yeah.
The first one was Boogie Nights, simply because I do love that film. We talked about it a few episodes ago.
Yeah, episode 5.
It was just outside my top 10, but I do love that film.
Yeah.
And I want to give a little love to a movie that I think I'm the only person in the world who's ever seen it, much like The Wrong Guy. It is called Best Men. And it stars Dean Cain, Andy Dick, Sean Patrick Flannery, and a bunch of other people that aren't big stars.
The cast doesn't really, but often that's the way it goes. Sometimes these things surprise you.
Yeah, it's one of those movies. It's about a guy who's getting... Oh, Drew Barrymore's in it. He's a guy getting married. He's getting out of prison. He's getting married. His friends stop at a bank on their way to his bachelor party, and they end up robbing it without him knowing it, but he gets sucked into it all. And it's clearly one of those films that was made after Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
It sort of has like the flashbacks, and that's very kind of Tarantino-esque. And it's a very 90s film. It's not one of those movies that is going to hold up in the way that something like Gattaca or Copland does. But I have a soft spot for it, and it came out on DVD probably a year ago or so, and I watched it because I was like, oh, I remember this film. I rented it from Blockbuster or whatever. And, I really enjoyed it, actually. It was a really fun film, even 20 years on almost.
Yeah, one of those films where there's no really major names, but it's just an enjoyable watch.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly it. It's an enjoyable watch. It's worth tracking down if it's one of those nights that you're bored. I don't know if it's online or streaming or whatnot, but if you come across it, it's a fun film. It's worth watching. So
okay. Well, there's a couple more honourable mentions from me. There was Face Off, which is just another fun, silly thing, but it's a little bit too silly.
Yeah.
And a couple of other fun ones, which I always enjoy watching, is Conspiracy Theory, the Mel Gibson one.
Yep.
Just because I love conspiracy kind of stuff. And also Anaconda.
Oh, yeah, I do love that movie.
Just because, I love John Voight doing that layer. He does it just...
I love giant animal movies. You give me a giant snake, I'm there. So that's a good one. That's a fun film.
But it wasn't going to be in the top.
No.
So that's 1997.
There you go. So those are our top 10 favorite films of the year. Feel free to let us know what your favorite films of 1997 were. I think it's about time that we can share how people can get in touch with us. Phil, why don't you take that away?
Yes, so you can find us on Twitter at after_the_ending. We're on facebook.com/aftertheendingpodcast, and you can listen to us by searching for After the Ending on iTunes, and we're also on soundcloud.com/aftertheendingpodcast. And we've got an email address. Do you want to tell them that, Mike?
Yep, you can email us directly at aftertheending@verizon.net. And like you said, Phil, we're on iTunes and SoundCloud. Please feel free to go over to either one of those and rate us and or review us and tell your friends about us because, us little podcast guys, we can use all the help we can get. So spreading the word and giving us some reviews is really one of the best things that you can do to help support what we hope is your favorite film podcast.
You can leave comments on all the various places as well. We do read them all. We appreciate any comments you have, and we look forward to reading your thoughts on this and future episodes.
Yeah, we love to hear from our audience, so please don't be shy. So, Phil, where can people find you specifically online?
You can find me mainly at liveforfilms.com, where we talk about movies, lots of movie news, reviews, trailers, posters, cool artwork, and the like, and that's also on Twitter and Facebook. That's where I can be found. And what about you, Mike? Where can they find you?
Well, the main place to track me down is at wordsoutloud.com, and that is my author website where I also share news about the podcast, and we've got a blog and all kinds of cool stuff. And most importantly, if you swing over to wordsoutloud.com, you can get a free audiobook, absolutely free, as we have mentioned before. I think you might even like it. So check that out. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/MikeSpringOfficial. So, Phil, what do we have coming up next week?
Next week, we will be doing the top 10 of 1955.
Yeah, we're going to take it back a little bit.
Yeah, which should be, I think this will be the 6th year we've done.
Yes.
So, and that's the first one from the 50s.
Yep.
Should be interesting because there was some classic films in the 50s.
Yeah, it's a different time. It'll be a different kind of films, I think.
Yeah, hopefully there'll be a few films that people haven't heard of, or we'll point them in the right direction to go, have a watch of them.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to discovering myself what was in 1955.
Yep.
And the films we'll be doing after the endings will be Top Gun, which was a little film starring Tom Cruise.
Yeah. I think a few people have heard of that one.
Yeah, a few people, yeah. And we will also be looking at the classic comedy horror film, The Monster Squad.
One of my favorites, a movie I enjoy greatly. So I think that's a cult classic if you have not seen it. And whether you're watching along at home or not, that is one that I definitely recommend checking out before you listen to the next episode. Not that we won't be able to keep you entertained either way, but it's a really, really fun, enjoyable, very endearing film from the 80s that it holds up quite well, and I think you'll enjoy our endings even more if you've seen it. So track that one down if you haven't watched it before.
Yeah, and if you do watch it, you will find out that the Wolfman has nards.
He absolutely does. All right, so there you go. So that's us for this week. As always, we thank you for listening.
Yes, many thanks to every single one of you for listening to our wild ramblings of
ramblingness.
Bizarre stuff. Yeah. Oh, and also there will also be next week. There will be another mini segment.
That's right. And another exciting new feature that we will probably make up sometime between now and then. Yeah. So let us know which ones of those you're enjoying, and maybe we'll even bring one of them back.
Yeah, because we might bring Crazy Corporate Classic Cast and Cartel of Crazy Climaxes, but who knows?
I'm just glad you like saying that so much.
I do. I really do like saying it.
All right. Well, we hope you all enjoy your movies between now and the next episode. As always, I'm Mike Spring.
And I'm Phil Edwards.
And we'll see you next week.
After the ending.
But his sort of... Yep. Okay.
That's the outtakes.
Yeah, already. Never a shortage of those. Lucky us. So, I'm good Lord. So that's Guys and Dolls. What a, blah, 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 blah. Yep. Okay. Let me take that again. Yeah, always. Yeah. I don't know why I said that. I was like nothing. I was like, I'll just blow air and it'll form words.
So then we fast forward to 2032. Where?
There we go. That was my burp. Sorry.
That's interesting. Not the burp.
Yeah.
Hold on. Is that Taco Bell?
Yeah. Wait. Let me see. Yep. I think it was.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, we're bringing the class tonight, aren't we?
Yeah.
Let's move on, Phil, to one of our new mini features that we have today. Something. I'll do that whole thing all over again.
Grand Moff Tarkin. Oh crap! I just realised that's the one I didn't do. Oh, I knew there was somebody else. Okay, here we go. Brace for impact. Hold on, need a drink of water. I was trying to be all dramatic and then didn't work.
And then you're like, a little dry. And I actually interviewed Colm Feore just a few months ago, and I actually talked to him. I actually said a whole bunch of times just then. All right, so that's my number 8 pick, Phil. That's my number 8 pick. Yeah, I said that right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's my number 8 pick, Phil.
Was that number 8 or number 9?
Sorry, you're right. So I said the sentence right, but I got the number wrong. Awesome.